Welcome back to American Republic. This is the last video that you have for week 7. So make sure that you have the chapter 23 test. Make sure you've taken the chapter 24 quiz. You've done the homework on Jackie Robinson. Make sure you turn all that in with your week 7 packet. And then you'll be getting your last week's packet for next week. Please make sure that you keep possession of your notes. You need them for your test, which will also be next week as well. So let's get right into it. Roman numeral 3, Cold War crises. Before we move on, we need to know what the Cold War is. The Cold War was between the U.S. and the USSR that avoided direct military conflict, but led to disputes concerning the rest of the world. So they weren't fighting like a hot war would. It was more of a competition for control of the world. They feared that a war might erupt and lead to a third world war. Soviet Union had already done some suspicious activities. For example, they had rushed into Poland and Eastern Europe to claim possession of the spoils left behind by the Nazis during World War II. Only after the fact that the U.S. used the atomic bomb on Japan did the Soviet Unions declare war on Japan and then march into Korea and take possession of the northern parts of it. And so we can see, of course, that Soviets seem to be all about taking control. Soviet troops occupied Eastern Europe, establishing communist parties in Bulgaria, Yugoslavia, Albania, Romania, Poland, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia. Winston Churchill's speech about an iron curtain falling across Europe marks the symbolic beginning of the Cold War. He said, "From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent." Churchill believed that the West would have to take firm action to halt future communist expansion. And President Truman agreed. Letter A, the Truman Doctrine containing communism. The Soviets soon proved Churchill's point by showing that they were not content to control only Eastern Europe. Their next goal was to claim the Middle East and the Mediterranean. Soviets withdrew from Iran only after being pressured by the United Nations. During the war, Allied troops had occupied Iran to keep its vital oil supply open. After the war, American and British troops withdrew, but Soviet troops remained. They only left when pressured by the UN. Next, communists began threatening Greece and Turkey. Communist-led guerrillas were trying to take over Greece, and Turkey seemed to be on the brink of falling to communism as well. What should Truman do? The answer? To promote a policy called containment. This was Truman's attempts to stop the spread of communism. It included, among other things, giving $400 million for military aid in Greece and Turkey. This program of containment succeeded in keeping Greece and Turkey free from communism. The Truman Doctrine was giving military aid to support pro-Western, anti-communist governments. Letter B, confrontation in Germany. Remember, we talked about this yesterday. How many sections was Germany divided into? 4. The countries that controlled them: U.S., Britain, France, and the USSR. Well, the thing was, Berlin, which was located in the middle of the Soviet-controlled East Germany, was divided into 4 sections as well. Berlin was divided into 4 sections. If you look in your books at page 485, it shows you a map of Germany. You see the Soviet zone, and in the middle of it you see the city of Berlin. When the U.S., Britain, and France decided to combine their sections of Germany into West Berlin, the USSR placed a blockade on Berlin. The US, British, and French zones received supplies from West Germany by truck or train across the Soviet-held lands. But when these countries united their parts into West Germany, the Soviet Union decided to place a blockade on Berlin. They wanted all of Berlin for itself. All road, rail, and river access in East Germany was denied any access to Berlin. 2 million residents of West Berlin were then without food, fuel, and other necessities. So, question that would be asked to Truman: what should we do? One possible answer is abandon the city. Well, that would allow the Soviets to take control, and it would undermine the European allies' confidence in the U.S. It would make us look weak. Maybe we could force open the blockade. Yeah, but that might lead to World War III. We didn't want that one either. So, Truman picked option C. Truman responded with a massive Berlin Airlift to continue supplying West Berlin. And for the next 321 days, more than 250,000 flights carried supplies into West Berlin. Nearly 2.5 million tons of supplies were airlifted to the blockaded city. The Soviets did not attack the planes as some people had predicted. When the Soviets realized that the U.S. would keep the Berlin airlift going indefinitely, they lifted the blockade in May 1949. If you look at page 486, it shows you in a pink box the statistical summary of the Berlin airlift, and realize that was impressive what they did there. Letter C. Alliances and aid. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, also known as NATO, formed to provide money, troops, and military equipment for mutual protection. NATO's charter members were Britain, France, Italy, Portugal, the Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, Belgium, Luxembourg, Canada, Iceland, and of course, the U.S. Greece and Turkey joined in 1952, and West Germany joined in 1959. Dwight D. Eisenhower became the first Supreme Commander of NATO forces. NATO was the first peacetime defense alliance that the U.S. had joined, a departure from its long-standing policy of isolationism. In response, the Soviets formed their own alliance called the Warsaw Pact. It included Poland, Albania, East Germany, Bulgaria, Romania, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and of course the Soviet Union. So the two sides forming their alliances. Letter D, the China question. Civil war between nationalist Chiang Kai-shek, who you see pictured on the left, and communist Mao Zedong, pictured on the right, had been going on before World War II, and then continued after World War II. Corruption and conflict within Chiang's party hurt his efforts, and American troops were pulled out of China in 1947. Well, in 1949, communists gained control of the mainland, forcing the nationalists to flee to Taiwan. So, communists take over China. Communist China became known as the People's Republic of China, which it's called today. They signed a non-aggression pact with the Soviets in 1950, confirming U.S. fears that the two communist nations would work together against the free world. Truman and several presidents after him continued to support Chiang and his government on Taiwan, but the U.S. government finally recognized the People's Republic as the legitimate Chinese government in 1979. Question might be asked, did the U.S. do enough to prevent the fall of China to communists? After the loss of China to the communist political parties in the U.S. did a lot of finger-pointing, as they do today, asking who lost China. But in reality, the level of U.S. responsibility for the outcome of internal conflicts in other countries is debatable. The U.S. felt compelled to withdraw its military support from China's corrupt nationalist government? Should the U.S. support a corrupt democracy that does not enjoy the support of its people? This question has arisen about South Korea, South Vietnam, Pakistan, and various other Latin American and African countries. So the answer is no. Should the U.S. continue to recognize only communist China or move toward recognizing both Chinas as sovereign nations? Should we allow the idea that Taiwan is its own country? Possibly. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. Actually, that's a good stopping point. I don't think we'll be able to move on from here. So we'll stop today. This is the last video of week 7. It's looking like there'll probably be about 3 more videos that you'll need to see next week. Please make sure that you get those videos taken care of early in the week because you got to turn the test, and then you are turning in that test with your packet on Friday, the last day of school, graduation day for the seniors. I hope you all have a good rest of the day. Please enjoy your weekend. Be good, do good. Bye.